16.3 Special Senses Vision. This diagram represents the anatomy of the eye. If we begin on the outermost layer of the eye, the white of the eye is the sclera. The sclera is the outer covering that covers the majority of the eye. However, in the front of the eye, the sclera is continuous with the cornea, the clear covering just in the front of the eye. If we move beneath the sclera, we can find the choroid. The choroid is a very darkly pigmented layer. Choroid comes around to the front of the eye and is continuous with the iris, which is that pigmented portion that we see beneath the cornea. And then the third layer is the retina. We'll look at the retina in some detail in just a moment. This is where the photoreceptors are found. So we come back around to the front of the eye. We see the clear cornea. Beneath the cornea is the iris. The actual opening in the iris is the pupil. So we can adjust the size of the iris. That adjusts the size of the pupil. That controls the intensity of light entering the eye. Behind the pupil is the lens. We can adjust the shape of the lens in order to focus incoming light. The muscle that actually adjusts the shape of the lens is called the ciliary body. So if we do need to focus light, that ciliary body can contract. That will change the shape of the lens. Behind the lens, the compartment, it's called the posterior compartment of the eye. It's filled with a gelatinous material, vitreous humor. So incoming light must pass through the cornea, the pupil, and the lens, the vitreous humor, and then it can interact with the photoreceptors of the retina. On the kind of lower left-hand portion of the diagram is indicated an area, the fovea centralis. This is a little depression in the retina, and this is where we have the highest concentration of photoreceptors. So if we are looking at something in very close detail, the incoming light does have to be focused just perfectly there on the fovea centralis. We'll look at the retina in some detail again in just a moment. There are three different types of cells that form the retina. One of these is called a ganglion cell, and it's the axons of the ganglion cell that exit the eye. It's called the optic disc, where the optic nerve exits the eye. It creates a blind spot in our vision also because there can be no photoreceptors right there. So if light rays happen to fall on that blind spot, we have no way to detect those. Photoreceptors, rods are one type. They are very plentiful throughout the retina. We use these for black and white vision. They are very sensitive, so in low light conditions we are relying on rods. Much of the things that we notice, especially motion out in our peripheral vision, is due to the action of rods. Rods will actually absorb any wavelength of visible light, but we simply interpret that as shades of black, white, and gray. Cones are the photoreceptors that detect specific wavelengths of light that we use to determine color. Three types of cones are blue, green, and red, and so various colors are due to combinations of the activity of these different types of cones. Individuals that are colorblind have one or more of these types of cones that do not function, and so they simply cannot distinguish all of the different colors of the visual spectrum. Cones do require more intense light, so if you just think it is very difficult, for example, to distinguish color in a very dimly lit room, there's simply not enough light present for the cones to be active. And these are most plentiful in that fovea centralis that we saw in the diagram a moment ago. This is a diagram of the two different photoreceptors. The cone would be on the left, the rod would be on the right, so they do have a little bit different shape. The outer segment of these photoreceptors contains specific pigments, and it's these pigments that absorb light, and the energy from that absorbed light causes some conformational change, and that is what sends a signal, opens or closes some ion channels to indicate that they have absorbed this light, and then these photoreceptors synapse with some other neural cells of the retina. So if you look at this diagram for just a moment, beginning with the left portion, this represents the back of the eye, and so incoming light would be coming from left to right. So the light has passed through the cornea, the pupil, the lens, the vitreous humor, it gets to the back of the eye, and the various photoreceptors you can see up against the sclera of the eye. Again, the tips of those photoreceptors can absorb light. They synapse with a second layer of cells, the bipolar cells, and then the bipolar cells synapse with yet a third layer of cells, the ganglion cells, and it's the axons of these ganglion cells that exit the eye form the optic nerve. In order to see clearly, to have a clear image, those light rays must be refracted or bent so that they are focused on the retina. About 75% of the refraction occurs at the cornea. Anytime a wavelength of light changes from one media to another, such as passing from air into the cornea, it's bent. And so most of the refraction occurs at the cornea. If we are looking at something more than about 20 feet away, the refraction at the cornea is sufficient for focus. So around 20 foot is called our far point of vision. This is in the normal eye. So anything 20 foot or greater is going to be focused. And so the lens does not have to do any refraction. The suspensory ligament is going to be relaxed, and so that lens is bulged out and flattened. However, if we move closer than 20 foot, those nearer objects, the rays are coming in more divergent, and so refraction at the cornea is no longer sufficient for focusing to occur. So as we move closer and closer to the eye, the ciliary muscle has to contract, the lens has to change shape. This is called accommodation, and this is what focuses that light so that the rays fall evenly back on the retina. At some point we reach our near point of vision, and at this point the lens has done all the work it can do, and if we continue to move closer we will be unable to focus. Now this is what happens as people age, and at some point they have difficulty, for example, reading, and they need reading glasses. As we age, that lens becomes less flexible and we are no longer able to focus on things very close into our face. Some abnormalities of the eye. Nearsightedness results from an eye that is too long, and so the dotted line here represents where the normal retina would be. In this case, the retina is behind that, and so individuals have difficulty seeing distant objects because the light is focused in front of the retina. So we can use a concave lens which refracts the light prior to those light rays entering the eye and allows these individuals to see clearly. Someone that is far-sighted, the eye is too short. So again, the dotted line in the diagram represents where the normal retina would be, and the light rays are being focused at a point behind these individuals' retina, and so they have difficulty seeing up close. So if we use a convex lens, again we can bend the light rays prior to those light rays entering the eye, and it will allow these individuals to focus and see clearly.